Get your brooms out. Dallas makes it a clean sweep on the New York Football Giants and take care of business at MetLife. With a very special guest on hand today, we discuss winners, losers, and more on this episode of Noise of the Boys. Cowboy Nation, what is happening? Live and in living color, we bring to you the Noise of the Boys podcast, a Dallas Cowboys Homer exclusive from our studio at HQ1. I'm your co-host, color commentator, Matt Longoria, and with me as always, my right-hand dude, sitting to my left, Uncle CTom.
What is up, everybody? Matt and I are just two true blue, over-the-top, die-hard fanatics that come together to make some noise about the boys. How we feeling today, Matt Long?
We are feeling good, but before we go any further, something's different in the studio today, and this is a very special episode because today we have with us the man, the myth, the legend, King Petty, henceforth known as KP. We shake you warmly by the hand. How we feeling today, KP?
Feeling pretty good today, guys. Happy to be here.
Very, very, very well, and we are just excited to have you, sir, and we're just going to get right into it. What do you say?
Let's get right into
Let's do it, guys.
Defense wins championships, and yet again, it seems the story of the game is the defense again. What can we say about this defense and the continuity they've shown, even without the likes of Osa Odigizua and Tristan Hill?
I can tell you this. My guy D-Law has come back with a friggin' vengeance. I mean, this defense is flying around the ball. They are finding ways to get stops. They are getting takeaways. The fact that this is the third straight game with 4 takeaways, all of them on the road, is absolutely insane. This is hands down the best defense that this Cowboys team has had in probably 10 years at the very minimum, like 10, 15 years probably. So very, very exciting stuff. I want to see the offense get back on track, but I'm finding myself more excited for the defense to come out on the field. I got D-Law, I got Micah. I mean, these guys are just playing out of their minds right now.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I find myself getting more excited, to your point, like you said, just to watch the defense. The defense plays out of their mind, and watching their energy and watching their effort plays and them hustling to the ball every single down. Man, it's exciting stuff. What do you say, KP?
Yeah, definitely agree with you guys on those points. This defense is something that has completely flipped over since last year. Dan Quinn hit the nail on the head with it. We've seen a completely different Dallas defense moving from last year to this year. And really, that's just them getting pressure and actually executing on tackles. And just overall great play from all of their star players and everybody being healthy. That's played a huge part in their success.
Certainly, and good on Mike Glenn for not allowing any of our big guys to get back and put them in the dirt. Although he did throw away 3 interceptions, Jake Fromm can't say the same thing, although Dallas didn't have any problem putting him in the dirt.
Thank you, Mike Glennon. Thank you for the Christmas presents. We appreciate you.
Now, we were a bit far off on our predictions. I had Dak Prescott going off. I said 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. He didn't do that bad. I mean, he had 217 and 1 TD. He didn't throw any INTs. That's very nice. He was sacked. He was sacked 3 times. I know we're without the likes of Tyron Smith. Go figure there, right? How many more games is this man going to miss? Hopefully not too many. But it wasn't necessarily the bounce back game that I expected for Prescott to have. But we have another shot next week, and we'll get more into that later on. But I want to talk to you guys a little bit about your winners and losers. KP, who was a standout player for you in terms of the Dallas Cowboys today?
If someone I'm going to target here is going to be Jaron Curse. I kind of noted it when I was watching the game with you, Matt. He's just a imposing figure along that defensive front, whether they have him sitting at Sam linebacker, whether they have him at a safety. He is just an imposing force. I like where they're moving him around. He's been getting tackles like crazy. He's been playing kind of like a hybrid linebacker safety. So definitely impact player. One person that's not normally talked about very much amongst the likes of DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons and Randy Gregory. Definitely want to give him a little shout out there.
Yeah, and what's great about J-Ron, I hope I'm saying that right, JK as they call him on the team, what's great about him is he was a journeyman and he only played like special teams. And then he comes to Dallas and Dan Quinn tells this guy, like, I have a spot for you. I want you on my team. And he comes in and this guy just, I mean, him and Micah Parsons, I would think are the two guys that helped change the culture of this defense. I mean, this defense has a whole new swagger, and I think you got to credit Curse to that, the intensity this guy brings. And, you know, they look to him as a leader, and it's just kind of mind-blowing. Like, he was a journeyman, and then he just came on the scene, and, he's balling out. I mean, even these last 3 games, he's just been playing out of his mind. So
hats off to Dan Quinn and the defensive coaches to get their line ready on such short notice with the loss of Osa Odighizuwa and Tristan Hill. Those aren't small losses either. And for the fact that the defense comes out and played the way they did, yes, against a struggling offense, it's still telling to the guys surrounding the defensive line. For my winners, I have to go with the offensive side of the football. I've got Dalton Schultz. This is a guy I felt that was really, really quiet. He kind of seemed like he was falling off the radar or falling under it. And today he just kind of showed out. My bad for sitting him. Probably could have made my fantasy football game go a little bit differently. But Dalton Schultz brings in 8 receptions for 61 yards and a TD. So very nice to see him, as well as Tony Pollard, a guy that I really thought wasn't going to play today. He was a game-time decision, and, of course, they elevated Corey Clement. Didn't matter. 12 carries, 74 yards, no TDs, but the fact that we got this kind of effort and production from Tony Pollard off of a foot injury, it's very telling. So I was really glad to see that.
He played outstanding, and, you know, I was expecting him to come in a little bit hobbled, and, I mean, it does not look like the guy has suffered any sort of setback at all. I mean, he came out, absolutely played his ass off, and he was showing the same burst. I was genuinely and pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and to switch over to the other side of the coin in terms of my losers, I got to hand it out to Kellen Moore, Mike McCarthy, and our guy Greg Zuerlein. It might be time to have a conversation about upgrading this position. We talked a little bit about it when we were watching the game, but Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy, it's time to start questioning some of the decisions that are being made. Specifically before the half, I don't really understand driving the length of the field after a very costly turnover and on the Giants' end. We go the length of the field and we have about 11 seconds to call timeout and take a shot in the end zone, and instead we just let it run down to 3 or 4 seconds and bring Zuerlein out. I don't really understand the effort there. What did you guys take away from that?
Well, let me just, I want to get to my winner before I speak on that first. My winner from this game is going to be DeMarcus Lawrence. I kind of praised on him at the beginning of the show. DeMarcus Lawrence is definitely one of my favorite players on the team. I love the intensity and the swagger that this guy brings. I hate using that word, but there's really no other way to describe DeMarcus Lawrence. Just want to read off his stat line here. He had 5 total tackles, 4 of them on his own. One was a TFL, so tackle for loss. And then he also had a pass deflection at the line. Got to the he didn't get a sack on the quarterback, but he knocked him down twice, which, as you know, as a defensive player, if you're not getting sacks, you need to at least put him on the ground in some sort of fashion. And then obviously with 42 seconds remaining, Dallas went down and they couldn't punch it in, something that we kind of struggled with all day. And DeMarcus Lawrence, you know, when at least expected, just boom, pop that ball out. And that's something that he's, you know, becoming notorious for almost. So I got D-Law as my winner, man. I love D-Law. You can't underestimate the impact that this guy has. If he's not getting the sack numbers that everybody thinks that his contract should live up to, he's making up for it in takeaways and making plays in the run game.
For sure. And to my point about the coaching decisions, how did you feel about that?
Well, so I'm kind of going to sit on the fence and then I'll refer to KP and see what your thoughts are on this. I can see it from both angles. Obviously, we want to be aggressive. We know that we're trying to fix some offensive woes, but at the same time, we had already had our, you know, chance at the 2-minute drive. So I think that what Mike McCarthy's mindset is there is like, hey, let's run this down. Let's take the points. We're going to go into the half up 10 points. Our defense is playing out of their mind, so we're going to make a stop, getting the ball back. But on the same token, we kind of hate that Jason Garrett mindset, So, I mean, I can see it from both angles, but I kind of want to hear what you got to say about that.
Yeah, I actually was going to touch on that, the Jason Garrett kind of mindset that this kind of reflects on, especially with you native Cowboy fans. That's something y'all are used to, is getting down there and then just trying not to lose is basically how the Cowboys are playing. Obviously, on the defensive side, it's playing a little bit different, but on offense, it seems like they're switching Dak from balling out to a more play management, game time management sort of offense. They're utilizing quick slants, quick throws. It's absolutely not opening this offense up at all. It was great to see that they did start deferring to Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard in the run game. And I actually noted this with Matt, that I think Kellen Moore figured out that Dak is able to toss the ball in the backfield, because we saw Tony Pollard take a couple of sweeps and tosses there. So that was a good change of pace.
It's nice to see those outside runs finally, right?
Exactly. Instead of just running bellies and halfback dives into the 1 and 2 gap, it was definitely great to see Tony Pollard used in that way, and Zeke as well.
At least in the first half.
Yeah, they're going to have to open it up a lot more. They should have handled the Giants a little bit more easy than what it appears on the score. Obviously, the defense did a great job handling them, but our offense y'all's offense needs to put up more points.
Yes, rushing 4 yards a carry, we ended up with 125 rushing yards throughout the course of the total game, but that should be telling of the second half. The first half, we ended up with 101. So that means only 24 for the second half in its entirety. Not very good to end the game. You could make an argument that if the defense doesn't show up to do their job and play the way they played, this could have been potentially a different outcome. Who knows? But we're glad that we don't have to live to tell that tale. Excuse me.
Do we know how many carries we had in the second half?
No, not on hand.
Because like you said, we did rush for over 100 in the first, and that's something that we can hang our head on. Like, we're finding that rhythm. I mean, if you look strictly at the stat sheet and you see 30 carries for 125 yards, and Zeke Elliott with that big one in the first half, the long touchdown run. I mean, it was awesome to see, Zeke finally get a little bit of space. Obviously, that was another run that was, right up the gut. But Zeke, he's running hard, man. He's a warrior. He's never going to quit. So it was good to see Zeke bust out a long one and, put his head down and barrel in there for a touchdown. My guy Zeke, playing his way through the pain. It's awesome.
For sure. Yeah, always great to see Zeke getting going. So what I'm really honed in on for this game is the red zone attack. We had 5 chances and we capitalized on them twice. The defense here and there are really setting us up for success and already getting their takeaways in enemy territory. And you expect the Cowboys, with the playmakers and offensive weapons that they have, to punch it in every single time, especially on a defense that's so beat up. It's really, really frustrating to watch an offense with this amount of talent perform so poorly in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, for a team that's this good on the offense with this much talent, you definitely expect them to perform a lot better in the red zone. I was hoping to see that this game, given what exactly the Giants were putting out there on the field. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm upset about it, but it's definitely not what I was hoping to see.
You got any thoughts on that? Anything to make me feel better about that that red zone attack, KP?
Sorry to disappoint, but no. Like I mentioned earlier, it's just they're not opening this playbook enough. We saw it earlier in the year. They were running a lot of play actions to utilize the run game, get people focused on Zeke and Pollard, and opening up Cooper and Lamb and Schultz in the end zone. But they're not running those types of routes anymore for whatever reason. Maybe they have a concern about Dak's calf. Maybe that's playing a factor into the decision making. They're running a lot of bullet screens, and it's just a lot of confusing play calling. You were there, obviously. I called that halfback dive right up the middle. I was it's right open. It's open through the middle, and sure enough, next play they called a middle play. They called the dive, of course, and Zeke took it and just barreled his way into the end zone. I would have loved to see them put up more points, but I don't think right now they are in an all hands on deck type of situation. That's where Dak has been thriving. I did mention to you guys that after the Washington game, when it came down to it, Dak was making those throws. He was targeting Gallup and Coop and Lamb at the end of the game. That's when we started to see the best out of Dak. But obviously before that, he threw a pick six. Right. So it's just when they absolutely need him to be clutch, that's when he comes through. And right now they don't need him to be clutch, so they're kind of playing a little safe. And since they're not putting up the points, we're not seeing them open up the playbook. And that's really what it comes down to.
And that's a little bit of a silver and blue lining for you, ladies and gentlemen, for you diehard Cowboys Nation fans out there. A dub is a dub, and at this point in the season, we're sitting at 4-0 in the NFC East. And ladies and gentlemen, if you've made it this far, we're going to introduce something a little bit different. We're going to turn to the phone, as we do have a longtime Dallas Cowboys diehard fan on the phone with us now, a longtime friend as well. We went to high school with this brother. His name's Justin Kerb. How are we feeling today, Justin?
Hey, baby. How about them Cowboys? That's how I feel.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Coming at you guys live today on a Victory Monday if you've tuned in, and we're recording today on a Sunday. Justin, what do you got for us today, brother?
Hey, man. It was a dub. Being 10-4, I'm extremely excited about seeing that 2 seed. Just got to watch the Tampa Bay Bucks take that L. Who dat? And so I think it's extremely important that we, see the big picture here. And the big picture is we're 10-4. We're in the 2 seed. We have a lot to improve on, yes, but there's a lot of good that came out of this game as well.
Absolutely. And to Justin's point, ladies and gentlemen, as we record right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been shut out by the New Orleans Saints in their own house, and that propels the Dallas Cowboys to the 2nd seed.
How good does that win look for the Dallas Cowboys right now?
It feels fantastic, I can tell you that much. And with Green Bay just barely hanging on, and Baltimore, they made a ballsy move going for the win. And you know what? I'm a fan of it. I really
gotta
am.
respect it.
Yeah, absolutely. And they fell on the short end of the stick on that one, but it is what it is. Justin, what kind of questions did you have? I very much welcome you to the show. We appreciate you coming on. Do you have any questions for us that we can discuss with you?
Yeah, man. Hey, first off, I just want to say thanks for having me on. But yeah, let's get right into it. So, looking at the overall performance, what was your take on the performance of our offense today, just in general?
In general, I think I was looking for a little bit more. I can acknowledge some of the efforts that they made to establish the run game and kind of mix it up for Ezekiel Elliott. But for me, I was really more so anticipating a huge bounce back game, more so than what we saw. But that's just my take on it. What about you, KP?
Definitely, I saw at least a change in like you mentioned, Matt. The first half, we did see a lot more running. I think that's also attributed to Pollard being in there, of course. I personally like Corey Clement. I followed him since his Wisconsin days, and then all the way through Philly, of course, and then making it a practice squad. He's also a journeyman, somebody that's paying dividends whenever we need him. He did have a good kick return. That's a slight tangent there. But yeah, overall, they did decent. I mean, Dak still completed 28 passes. He had a QBR of, I believe it was 78. So that is an improvement from last week. I mean, anything would have been an improvement.
Silver and blue lining.
Silver and blue lining, Cowboys Nation.
But yeah, definitely. I would have loved to see a little bit more, just because. I'm a fantasy football player first, fan next. I would have loved to see him open it up a little bit more. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. That's okay.
I got to piggyback off of that. Dak coming off probably one of the worst games of his career, came out there and, obviously showed some signs of improvement. He's got to get these turnovers in the fourth quarter to, that is unacceptable. And he'll be the first guy to tell you that. But if you take away that play, you think, hey, he did exactly what he needed to. He made the throws that he needed to. CeeDee Lamb did not help him out very much today.
No, he did not.
And I mean, he was spreading the freaking ball around, man. I mean, Dak hit 8 different receivers. I mean, guys you've never even heard of, like Malik Turner and Jay Sprinkle, getting in on the action. I mean, you can't ask for much more from your quarterback. Spreading the ball around, that's going to make things difficult. What I'm most excited about is the fact that we are finally finding some success in the run game. Last game, a lot of Cowboys fans were saying, what's going on with the run game? But, I mean, we still went over 120 yards.
Yes.
It wasn't as efficient as we'd like, but they still did well. In this game, I think they did very well. 30 carries for 125 yards. Really where we just need to tighten things up is the red zone, in my opinion. If we can figure that out, I think this Cowboys team is destined for a deep playoff run.
Certainly that, and making sure we minimize dropping passes. I think that goes without saying. But that's our take on it here at HQ1. What about you, Justin? What did you take from this game?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the same for sure. I thought it was a much needed, better performance out of Dak Prescott, going 28 to 37, 217, 1 touchdown. But I think the highlight was Tony Pollard. I mean, the guy continues to show up, 12 carries, 74 yards. I mean, 6.2 a carry. You really can't ask for anything more of him. And I also want to highlight Dalton Schultz. I think this guy has become Dak Prescott's safety blanket, much like a Romo Witten, not quite there yet, but 8 targets, 8 receptions, 67 yards. I mean, what more could you ask of a tight end? Overall, I thought it was an excellent performance out of highlighted players, meaning that as a group, I was still not satisfied, but a huge improvement from key guys that we needed. Obviously, you highlighted CeeDee Lamb struggled, 9 targets, 6 receptions, different helmet. I think that could definitely be it. No, I'm just joking. But I think for me, too, the concerning thing, though, is Amari Cooper. I can't figure him out sometimes. I think he's a necessary guy on this team. But sometimes it's like, where are you? 5 targets, 2 receptions for 8 yards. I don't know. I mean, what were your thoughts on that? I just think it's crazy, honestly. We pay him $20 million a year, and I get it, man. He's not going to have 100 yards every game. That's not what I'm asking for. But this is just, in my opinion, that's kind of an unacceptable performance.
Yeah, especially with him returning from COVID. I know that there were some issues with him, at least when he first came back, and talk about him having to work on his strength and conditioning again, because obviously COVID does take its toll. But, I mean, you're right. I have to agree. He's been kind of spotty since then. You're kind of looking for CeeDee Lamb to make the big plays, and when Cooper does make a play, you're just like, it's always great, and especially away when you hear the fans yelling Coop. But I do have to agree with that. I mean, I don't really have a whole lot more to add on. What about you guys?
Yeah, I definitely do. Amari Cooper, like you said, Justin, he is a game changer in the fact that him being out there is absolutely opening things up for other guys. And while I agree that 5 targets, 2 catches for 8 yards is completely unacceptable for a guy like Amari Cooper, you got to think about it in terms of, this team had 30 carries, was finding efficiency in the run game. That's going to make Dalton Schultz your number one guy. Coming off the play action, you're going to find Dalton Schultz wide open more often than you aren't. And I think Dak actually had him, and for that could have gone for another big play. And the defender made a really nice play, and Dak probably underthrew it a little bit. You got to loft it over that defender. But all this to say, when the run game is efficient, it is as efficient as it was today. The guys on the outside, you want to take those deep shots, but at the same time, it's hard to not take, the necessary gains when you see it there with the tight end off of the play action. So I think that's a big reason why Cooper kind of struggled today. I think another reason is, this might sound like kind of like a cop out or maybe an excuse, but it was very, very windy, and we didn't see the Cowboys take a whole lot of deep shots to wide receivers today. And the one that did got caught by the wind pretty bad. At least that's what the broadcast was saying, was that the ball was underthrown. Dak was throwing directly into the 20-mile-per-hour winds. I mean, it's tough to throw in those conditions. So I think right. those are some of the reasons why our wide receivers kind of struggled today.
Yeah, continuing off of you, Caleb. I actually am a Amari Cooper truther. While I do love CeeDee Lamb, he is the game changer. That is no longer Amari Cooper's job. Amari Cooper is strictly out there to be Larry Fitzgerald. He's not out there to be DeAndre Hopkins. That is now delegated to CeeDee Lamb. So kind of going off of that, this is what I was noting earlier about opening up the offense, is that they're focused on these short plays that highlight CeeDee Lamb, because CeeDee Lamb makes plays like this. However, Amari Cooper does not. Amari Cooper runs routes. That's how he gets open. That's how he gets his spacing. He's not this type of take it and run type of guy. He has to get a route on somebody, get the 1 or 2 steps, and then he can make a play. If you take a look at the Rams playoff game, any Washington game, you can see what I'm talking about. That's where he gets his spacing off of those routes. But since they're not opening it up, he's always going to have games like this. Out of the last 3 games that he's played, he's had 2 catches for the Giants, 2 catches for the Saints, and then he had 4 catches against Atlanta. In the Saints and Atlanta game, he did have above 40 yards on those games. But what I'm saying is those games he did have the opportunity to run routes because those were a little bit closer. This one they didn't really need him to come through like that. And that's to your other point, was that Pollard was just all over it. He was making those big plays. He was very explosive. He was getting the first downs. And that's typically where we would see Amari Cooper coming through and getting those outs over the ends over the middle, and utilizing typically where they would see Blake Jarwin. That's where Amari Cooper would come in. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I would prefer, as again a fantasy football player, I would prefer to see him have a huge line. But right now he's just doing what he's being asked.
Interesting you bring up that point about him being a route runner. And Justin, to your point, it's interesting that you brought up specifically Tony Pollard and Dalton Schultz. You weren't tuned in just yet, but those happen to be my winners for the day. Justin, before we let you go, do you have any more questions for us that we can tee off with you and shoot?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, talking about all of this brings me to my next question. Do you think this style of play, all things considered, I'm talking about offense and defense here, that this can lead to victories in the playoffs?
No. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no.
Before we get to our answers, Justin, we're going to let you go, man. We appreciate you joining the show, man, for sure. Thanks for calling in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll get to your answer. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. All right.
Okay. Go ahead, King Petty.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Not with how the offense is playing. The defense will definitely get them a win, but is it going to get them to the Super Bowl, get them to the NFC Conference Championship? At very least, no. We could speculate that that's something that would be okay if they made it to at least the second round of the playoffs. But seeing True Blue fans here, I would assume that y'all would be wanting Super Bowl, especially how well this team has been playing. But that's currently only on the defensive side. They have to start putting the ball into the end zone.
Yes.
That's just what it comes down to. And currently they are not doing that. I think it's the play calling. I think it's a lot of, I don't know if it's Jerry Jones is having an issue with this, like he's influencing the play calling, or is it Mike McCarthy having Jerry Jones in his ear, or what it is, because when we see Kellen Moore have a full reins over the playbook, you see a big difference. But now we're starting to see what Jason Garrett was kind of hindered with. So that's kind of my takeaway for that.
Interesting point, but I mean, to piggyback, we're not going to make a deep playoff run if we're not punching the ball in the end zone. Reality is we are facing some subpar teams, and you kind of fully expect them. That's why I said you expect them to pound it in every single time. This Giants team, specifically their defense, is very depleted, and the fact that they went 2 for 5 in the red zone is a little bit concerning. You find yourself scratching your head at some of the play calls being made. But again, that's very interesting that you say that Jason Garrett had these problems, and now it's kind of translating into Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy. What do you take from that?
Let me ask you something. If the Cowboys go 3 for 5 instead of 2 for 5 in the red zone, are we having this conversation?
I mean, it puts us in a much better spot. I mean, that's arguable, but I mean, it kind of if the defense plays the way they're playing, I mean, I don't think so, because that puts us at a 28-6 victory. That's a little bit more convincing to me.
Yeah. So my opinion on this is I think that the way that we're playing, you absolutely can win in the playoffs, because we saw the Philadelphia Eagles do it in 2017. My biggest thing is I would need for Dak to be a little bit more crisp, and I would like to see some more success in the red zone. If we go 4 for 5 in the red zone today, yeah. Like we're gonna win. We're gonna win in the playoffs. Getting 4 takeaways, absolutely. Obviously, you're not gonna face Mike Glennon in the playoffs, but on the same token, I mean, if you get takeaways, you play solid defense, and you're able to run the football, especially when you have to go play. Like, imagine if Green Bay ends up the number 1 seed, you're gonna have to be able to be efficient running the football. So tighten things up in the red zone. I think we absolutely have a good formula. I mean, we've got 3 awesome receivers. We would like to see them playing much better. Same with Dak. But if we can play outstanding defense and we can run the football with efficiency, that is a formula for a deep playoff run. So I think that Cowboys Nation silver and blue lining, 3-game win streak, all of them on the road. That's something to be excited about.
Yeah. Going into the end of the season and finishing up with these last 3 games, it's going to be just as important not only to win it, but for the offense to find a rhythm and get into a good groove to propel us into the postseason. We know not just yet whether or not we're going to have a first round bye and see the playoffs run through Arlington, but right now it's looking really good. Arizona got not shut out, but they got destroyed by a Lions team who's been up and down this season, but seems to be in every single game. And they showed today that they can get it done. And Tampa Bay absolutely crapped the bed and dropped the ball today. And we are sitting really, really pretty right now in the 2nd seed with 3 more games to play.
I mean, I just think that with the way that everybody has been kind of up and down this season, I feel like the Cowboys Nation, we know this. If you've been a true blue fan, if you've been a part of this bandwagon for a while, we're gonna catch crap no matter what. You win, you get trolled. You lose, you get trolled. So stop listening to what the mainstream media has to say, because the rest of the teams in the NFL have been up and down this season. I mean, this is a crazy season, and I think that we might get crucified for this, but I think that this Super Bowl is up for grabs, and I think the Cowboys are right there with any other of the top 3 teams in each conference that have a shot at, taking, going all the way and taking it all. I think the Cowboys should be considered a serious contender, especially after this weekend.
For sure. I mean, I think that every team thus far has done a good job of showing that they are absolutely human and absolutely beatable. But before we end things, we have to extend a heartfelt thank you to our guy, KP. KP is one of the first to believe in us and puts our videos up on his website. KP, where can we find you? Where can we find this video? Tell us about your website and a little bit about yourself before we take off for the evening.
Yeah, of course. So you can find me at King Petty FFB on Twitter. I also have my own website, www.kingpettyffb.com. You can subscribe for my weekly waiver wire for all my fantasy football player fans out there. You can subscribe to me there. You can subscribe to me on Twitter. I'm always open to new questions, dialogue. I love interacting with people. I do like to get everybody to the fantasy football championship. It's not in cards for everybody, but I'll definitely give it my best shot.
Cowboys Nation, you make sure you follow this man because he won me $500 in my fantasy league 2 years ago. It's worth the investment. Subscribe to this man.
King Petty FFB, the guy is a fantasy football guru, all about the matchups, all about the games, every single last one of them that's going on from Thursday all the way to Monday night. But, ladies and gentlemen, if you've made it this far, we want to thank you for your time and attention and hope that you've learned something of value here in the last half hour. Smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and activate that bell button so that you can be the first to know when a new episode of Noise of the Boys podcast is dropped. And with that, we are out of here. Matt Longoria, Uncle CTom, and KP, we will see each and every one of you for the pregame report.
Peace!